From the video you just watched, that video was to unveil the VCI West African Equity Index. The index was co-created by Vetiva Capital, CGF Boss, and IC Securities. So the index seeks to achieve three major objectives. One is to have a benchmark that institutional investors that have investments spread across West Africa can use to evaluate the performance of their portfolios. Two is to have an index that is investable. So what this means is that for investors that want to have a passive approach towards investing in West Africa, they can easily replicate the consequence of this index and easily track the performance of the index. The third one really is to have an index that, to a reasonable extent, effectively reflects trading sentiments across West Africa. So as a result of that, the index is actually based on adjusted market cap weighting. So what this means is that, so taking the Nigerian market, for instance, the Nigerian market accounts for over 70% of the market capitalization across West Africa. So if we were to use an absolute market cap weighting, then the performance of the index would be largely influenced by the performance of the Nigerian markets, and that will not give a clear picture of what's really going on across the entire region. And that was the reason we decided to use an adjusted market cap weighting. Based on these three objectives, we should be able to have an index that investors will be interested in, want to use to evaluate the performance of their portfolios, so they can easily replicate it. The third one is that it reflects trading sentiments across West Africa. Then speaking more on the index will be reviewed semi-annually, that's in March and September every year. And the first review date will be September 2022. The index comprises 17 stocks. 8 stocks were selected from the Nigerian market, 5 stocks from the Ghanaian market, and the remaining 4 stocks from the BRVM market. All the stocks were selected from several sectors, so the index actually carries a diversified sector representation. So that will be all on the index. Thank you. For the question. So speaking on the criteria used to select the stocks included in the index, we actually used 3 criteria. One is companies that have large market capitalizations. 2, companies that are relatively more liquid compared to their peers. The third one is to pick stocks from different sectors. So there will be a diversified sector representation on the index. Yeah, so the index is actually for investors that have exposure to the West African markets. So it's not for the Nigerian market alone. It's for the for investors that have exposure to the entire West African equity markets. However, like I said at the start, the index was co-created by Vetiva Capital, CGF Boss, and IC Securities, but Vetiva Capital is the custodian of the index. Thank you. Because it's an index and it's an investable index that can be replicated by investors that want to have a passive approach towards West African equities. So you don't want a situation where the index is reviewed more frequently. That way, it's going to have 2 major implications. One is going to come in the form of trading cost. 2, some investors might not be keep track of what's really going on, and that way they might miss out on the revaluations on the index, and that can actually impact their performance. I mean, there can be a significant deviation in terms of what their portfolio will return at the end of the day versus what the index will actually return. So at the moment, like you said, it's an index. It's not really an ETF, right? So we just have stocks included in the index. So that way the index can easily track the performance of equities. So for investors that are really interested in replicating the index, I mean, they can just buy all the constituents of the index, really. That's for investors that want to have a passive approach. Then in terms of how we included this index, I mean, the index was based on a common currency, which is the USD, because there is the need to have a means of comparison across board, really. So all the constituents of the index are actually on based on USD for ease of computation of the index performance.